Hi guys, this is Elizabeth from Alexandra's Private Tuition, and today I thought I'd go through language paper one, which I know is literally around the corner on Friday. So hopefully these are some tips that you might find useful. As I said previously, I've been teaching the GCSE spec for years, so these are things that I've found work for me as a teacher and also for my students that I've been teaching. So first things first, we know it's a piece of non-fiction text that you need to read through. My advice would be to make sure you read through the paper at least 2 times. Now, the reason why I say that is the first time is to get a general gist for the paper, and the second time it's to basically try and refine your understanding. Now, most important for me and for my students that I teach in year 11 is making sure that you write down 3 adjectives to describe the source. Now, when I talk about 3 adjectives, I'm not necessarily talking about adjectives from the extract, just adjectives that illustrate your overall feeling of the source. So it could be to describe the character, the mood, the atmosphere. So 3 adjectives that really kind of like sum up your impression of the text. Now, the reason why I say that is that for all my years of tutoring, all my years of teaching, it has never failed and it's always helped with question 2, which is your language analysis question. But before we get ahead of ourselves, make sure that you read the extract and you know what it is about. Because if you don't know what the extract's about, then there's no way you're going to be able to answer the questions properly. My next bit of information is to follow the paper the way that it is written. Now, I know some people would advise you to do question 5 first and then go to question 4 and that way. But in my opinion, follow the paper the way that it was written. For example, you have got a 40 out of 40 piece of writing in front of you that will help you with your question 5. Question 1 helps you to understand what the source is about. Question 2 helps you to analyze language and think about the writer's choice of language. Question 3 focuses on structure. Question 4 helps you to understand the opinion and the kind of effect you're giving off. And all of those skills are building up and leading to you to answer your question 5. So my advice is to follow, because you are building the skills and then the examiners expect you to then use the skills that you've been analyzing, that you've been evaluating, and use that knowledge to then work and do your question 5. So question 1, straightforward question. My advice, read through the 4 lines that they tell you to read through and pick actual evidence from the text. You're not supposed to be inferring. You're not supposed to be reading between the lines. It's asking you factual things. So if it says, how does the writer present this character? How is this character feeling? Find actual quotes that show how the character's feeling. For your question 2, my advice would be is use those 3 adjectives. So say, for example, the question is, how does the writer present the weather? From your 3 adjectives, you might have written down uncomfortable, airy. You might have written down tension or tense. So in your first line, when you're writing your response to question 2, you could say, in the extract, the writer presents the atmosphere as eerie. The writer presents the atmosphere as mysterious. Straight away, you're going to get a mark because you are making a point about the text. A lot of students tend to say the writer uses many language devices, but you're not actually getting any marks because you're not being specific about what the writer is doing. So for that question, 2 paragraphs, I would definitely advise about 2 quotes, really focusing on the writer's use of language. So it's not just about feature spotting. You're not looking at metaphors and simile. Don't just list it out. Talk about the impact of those devices. So the writer uses a simile to create an impression of. The keyword dark makes us feel. Question 2 is all about the effect on the reader. So it's not just about spotting those language devices. It's about commenting on the effect of those devices and why the writer has chosen to use them. Question 3, as you know, it's about structure. So how has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? You are not supposed to analyze language. Do not zoom in on keywords. This question is strictly about structural devices. So you're thinking about things like zooming in and out. That's like a camera lens. So remember, whenever you zoom in on something, it's to get more detail, to offer a deeper description for the reader. When you zoom out, it's to get a broader perspective. So maybe the writer wants you to see something at an overall panoramic view. Another thing that's quite good to remember is the shift in focus. Okay, so does it move from one thing to the next. And why has the writer chosen to do that? There are many other structural devices that I can list below to help you, but obviously you can also, Google them, and you should know them from your lessons. When it comes to structure, I always use the analogy of a carpenter. So obviously we know carpenters build tables, they build structures. What the text is essentially asking you is, why has the writer decided to structure the text in that particular kind of way? The same way you might answer a carpenter, like, why have you given the table 4 legs instead of 3? Or 2 legs instead of 3? Basically, it's thinking about what is the purpose of this device. So for example, you can say the writer has chosen to begin the extract by zooming in on Maya's character. Why is it important to zoom in on Maya's character? Because it gives us as a reader an insight into who the protagonist is. We begin to understand Maya's likes and Maya's dislikes. You are supposed to explain the purpose of that structural device being used. Remember, beginning, middle, end. So at the beginning of the text, the writer does this. At the middle of the text, the writer does this. And by the end of the text, the writer does that. And again, it is 2 paragraphs for this question. Okay, you don't use long quotes. Literally, why has the writer used the structure? Now, one thing that is very annoying as an English teacher, do not say it interests us and makes us want to read on. Too vague. Too vague. What it is that you want to say is why we are interested. Okay, and even if you need to lie because you're actually not interested in what the writer is saying, lie about it. Okay, it makes us question why Maya would make such a decision. It makes us question why Maya is in this surroundings, and we become worried for Maya. Blag it. Waffle if you need to. Okay, so I hope that helps somebody. Question 4. Now this is our 20 marker, and this is where you are required to evaluate. You're given a statement and you have to evaluate that statement. Now, the good thing about this question is that you are able to talk about language and you're able to talk about structure. So all the things that you built up from question 1 and 2, you are going to use those skills to help you to answer question 4. And the main thing with this question is that you need to read the statement properly. Now, typically, the statement is in 2 parts. So my advice that I normally give to my students is write a paragraph on each parts of those statements. So say, for example, the question could be, a student said that Maya is both afraid when talking to the stranger. However, she does not seem to care about her surroundings. So the first paragraph would be about whether or not you agree that Maya is scared. And the second paragraph would be about whether or not she cares about her surroundings. And again, you're using evidence to back up your point. Think about it as being a lawyer. And again, this is an analogy that I use with my students and an analogy that I use in the revision book that I'm currently producing. Lawyers argue their case, and your job is to argue your point of view. So you're asking yourself, do I agree with this statement? And then you have to back up your point of view. When you are arguing with your friend about something, you don't just make 1 or 2 points. You want to win the argument. So you need to make sure that you are actually using quotes and you are analyzing the heck out of those quotes to prove your point. So that means zooming in on keywords. That means talking about structure. You're building on those analytical skills in order to get your point across. And last but not least, you've got question 5. Now, one of the things that's really frustrating as a teacher and having marked for the examination board is that students think that it's all about quantity. It's about quality. You do not need to write a ridiculously long story. You don't, okay? We're not asking you to write the best novel. What you are doing is taking a snippet, like a small snippet of a story. Okay, make sure that you're writing in clear paragraphs. Make sure that you're paying attention to your punctuation and your spelling. Remember, you get 2 sets of marks with this. So you get your AO 5, which is 24 marks, which is all about your ideas and how you kind of present it. And then you've got your AO 6, which is 16 marks, which is all about your spag and the way that you use your paragraphs. Now, my advice for this is, if you are deciding to do a description, the picture, put yourself in there. pretend that you are standing. So say, for example, it's a picture of a rainforest and there's animals all around. Imagine that you are standing in that rainforest, okay? Imagine you are there and you are describing what you see. It's really easy to write about things from a first person narration. So you're going to describe the setting first. Then you're going to move to your character, so introduce your character. And by introduce your character, I'm not saying, oh, hi, my name is. Introduce what your character's thinking, what your character's feeling. Your third paragraph, introduce a bit of a flashback. Again, you're using the structural devices. Introduce a flashback. That way you can show the examiner you know how to use structure. And then bring it right back to the setting. So again, you're using that cyclical structure, okay? My advice, again, is take your time and describe, okay? Remember, you're painting a picture for your reader. You're using imagery. You're using all those devices that you have been taught from year 7. Your metaphors, your similes, your personification. Use short sentences. Use 1-sentence paragraphs, okay? You want to make sure that your story stands out, but it stands out for the right reasons and not being ridiculously long. Nobody wants that, okay? So, have fun. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but try and enjoy the process, because when you enjoy writing your story, we enjoy reading it as teachers and examiners, okay? And best of luck to all of you. If you've got any questions, please comment in the comment section below. Drop me a DM. I am there to help, and best of luck on your exams tomorrow. Bye.